From the broadcast center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Nicholas Poitras, and this is your news at 2:30. BC will be banning the use of illicit drugs in parks and on beaches, as well as near doorways and bus stops. Premier David Eby and Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth announced the legislation earlier this afternoon. After last month, the provincial government announced it would recriminalize possession within 15 meters of what it described as child-focused spaces.
We need a province where people feel secure in their communities. They go to the park, that it's a safe and welcoming place for them and for their families. And also, we need our province to be a place that is one of compassion and empathy for people struggling with addiction.
The government did a full decriminalization of drugs back in late January. A fiery crash has shut down Highway 1 between Spence's Bridge and Cache Creek in the BC interior. Bystanders saw a truck on fire and flames spreading around the embankment. There's also a transport truck on its side with what appears to be scrap metal strewn across the highway. Paramedics treated one person with minor injuries at the scene and did not transport anyone to hospital, BC Emergency Services said. No fatalities have been reported. Black bear sightings are at an all-time high in British Columbia. Our reporter Madison Buckingham spoke with a wildlife expert to learn more about why the province is seeing such an influx.
Executive Director of the Fur Bears, Leslie Fox, says a big reason that communities are seeing so many black bears is that this year's forest fire season was so detrimental to their natural habitat. Now that they are in BC neighborhoods, Fox says that they are taking bigger risks with human interaction because of the uncontrolled garbage situation.
Animals are primarily driven by a need for food and habitat, and so that's really what they're looking for. And just like us, they want a safe place to live, and they want access to natural food sources.
Fox suggests that municipalities need to supply and better regulate the use of garbage locks to reduce attracting the black bear population. Madison Buckingham, 1680 The Crow.
Many Canadians were excited when Aritzia Canada launched a huge online sale early this morning featuring the previous season's collection. Only that excitement didn't last long for many customers. Our reporter Grace McLeod finds out why shoppers were angry and speaking out on social media.
Aritzia's archive sale was promising shoppers up to 50 to 80% off from their previous collection of clothing. This sale took place on their website, which did not go as planned for a large portion of customers. Carly Bellamy, a marketing student at Capilano University, was amongst those anticipating individuals. She claimed to have logged on at exactly midnight when the sale was launched, and after a minute, the site went blank, claiming there was an issue.
I was looking on their Instagram every 2 seconds to see if they had an update for us. They literally had nothing, and I was looking at the comments on their Instagram, and they weren't responding to those either.
Bellamy eventually gave up, but took a look at the website the next morning. She claimed that the items were still listed on the now working site, only everything good was sold out. Bellamy is amongst a large group of angry shoppers who are annoyed with the lack of communication on Aritzia's part. I'm Grace McLeod, 1680 The Crow.
There's word that former U.S. President Donald Trump could visit Capitol Hill next week as House Republicans hear from candidates for the next speaker. Along with Trump, several far-right Republicans have pointed out that the speaker doesn't have to be a House member and also suggested that one of his close allies could do the job. Reporter Stephen Portnoy has details.
Sources caution that nothing has been finalized and plans could change, but the sources also tell ABC News the former president is thinking of sitting in on next Tuesday's candidate forum. If he attends, it would mark Donald Trump's first time inside the U.S. Capitol since his presidency, certainly the first time since the riot led by his supporters on January 6th. Some members of the GOP conference have suggested that Republicans should choose Trump as their next speaker. He says he'd rather be the next president.
And on to the weather. Vancouver is looking very clear skies at 20 degrees. Going into the weekend, there won't be a cloud in sight, as Friday through Sunday will be clear skies with all 3 days reaching a high of 20. And that was your news at this half hour. I'm Nicholas Poitras, and you're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
I have never seen a community-based event that has had quite the peak that this event had.
And it all comes down to this, as we always somehow knew it would. Game number 5 of the grand finals of the Canadian Esports Championship Series Spring Masters is about to begin.
They don't care that they have to come into a venue and buy a ticket, whatever. They just show up.
You can think all you want about all these crazy ideas, but until it actually becomes reality, you can't really put it into perspective.
Esports are competitive video games, but they can come from a casual or professional background. In recent years, professional esports teams and groups have become larger and more prevalent, making community-based events more needed than ever. CECS is one such organization, started as an attempt to legitimize non-profit esports and build community around it.
My name is Melanie Penner. I am the CEO of Manitoba Esports Association, and I'm Commissioner of the Canadian Esports Championship Series. We're not a professional, or we try to be professional, but we're not a big organization. We're all grassroots, all nonprofit, and the reasoning behind CECS and what we've tried to do is make it very grassroots focused. We're focusing on community.
For an in-person spring event, CECS is running a tournament for Valorant, a popular team-based shooter game that pits 2 teams of 5 players against each other. Teams have a specific objective they must complete to win a round, either as the attacking or defending team. The first team to win 13 rounds wins the match.
We like to put on a show where we have 2 teams that are featured on a stage and people cheering for them. It's a diverse group of people that are being given an opportunity to shine, to be given a platform, and I think it's just kind of not as represented, and we want to represent those folks who are just as important as everybody else.
The esports industry can be broken into 3 tiers. Tier 1 is the professional commercial level, with the largest production budgets, the highest skilled players, and typically the largest audiences. Tier 2 is the college-university level, where schools will enter tournaments and competitions with student players, and university student clubs run the production side. Last is Tier 3, which is the smaller community level, often relying on volunteers to run the show. The tiers scale up by the amount of money involved, not necessarily by the skill level of players nor the size of the audience. Regardless of level, in-person LAN tournaments take months to prepare for and plan, while Tier 1 tournaments have paid staff and Tier 2 events have students. The third tier relies on individuals who volunteer their time.
My name is Dylan Svitan. I am the Technical Director of the Canadian Esports Championship Series.
Dylan flew from Vancouver to Winnipeg to help assist with the tournament's technical needs.
One thing that in this venue specific is our lighting setup up top, having the whole bar light up here and having different dynamic lights on the left and right. It allows us to have a more traditional show feel to it. We've been at venues where they didn't have this and it felt very much like you're playing in a hotel lobby. And then with the speakers and stuff hanging on the sides of the stage, that really enforces a lot of, when the game sounds come through, you hear a big boom. It really engages the audience. Audio is so important when it comes to a performance. You can have everything visual, but if there's no sound, it doesn't impact you in the same way.
A lot of work goes into making esports events live up to the hype. From the required computing power for the players' computers, to the high-speed internet to minimize lag, The basic infrastructure needed runs up thousands of dollars. This is what an esports event is like on a smaller level. However, the industry is rapidly growing, reporting over $1.44 billion in revenue in 2022.
My name is Wes Rambo, and I used to work for CECS as a volunteer doing broadcast direction, creative direction, and these types of things. But this time I am a freelance caster and host hired to help out with this event.
There's like a team of like 30 people behind me that are really helping make this event happen. It's not just me, it's not just Dylan, it's not just Jasmine, it's not just John, it's a whole slew of people.
I'm just going to read it and then we're going to get right into the game. Welcome to the West End Cultural Center, home to some of the most legendary performances in the history of Winnipeg. But this weekend it will be home to a kind of performance it has never seen.
It relies a lot on a lot of volunteer work. It relies a lot on inexperienced people doing things for the first time and sort of one person taking on a number of different roles, which obviously is not ideal and sometimes can lead to very, very stressful situations, but it's just the nature of the beast. We have the people we have, so that's kind of how it has to go. One big difference is there is more opportunity for us to choose how we want our event to look and what we want our event to do. Obviously, we've got sponsors who support us and we have to be beholden to them for certain, aspects of the show. But we don't have a massive corporation being owning our event quite so directly.
Wes notes on how an influx of money in the industry has changed the environment and left the community in the dust.
The thing that you run into is that teams and organizations sink a lot of money into esports groups, esports teams, events.
Larger groups, including companies behind the games themselves, run their own esports teams and competitions at a loss, with the benefit of growing their player base and general exposure to mainstream audiences. This strategy can grow the game, but it is not a moneymaker.
When you look at something like Riot Games, where it looks like a very successful esports project, that's because they use it as an advertisement for their in-game transactions, for their skins for guns or their skins for champions. That is what the LCS and the VCT, that's how they are allowed to continue to operate and have funding. So it's almost like, how do you make money? A lot of people have thought about that question a lot, and a lot of times it has led to really, in my opinion, sucking the soul out of esports.
These large competitions, backed by wealth, cannibalize smaller ones like CECS, as many players look to big teams and leagues as the pinnacle of their favorite game. It also leaves no room for lower-skilled players looking for competitions that they can still enter and participate in.
They are promoting their game to casual players, and it happens to be that esports can draw in a lot of viewers and advertisers think that's worthwhile. But if you don't have that kind of thing, if you don't have that kind of motive or that kind of incentive, then you will lose money on esports. Everybody knows esports does not make money within itself. Inherently, it does not make money. It always loses money.
Passion for games and community is what makes tournaments and organizations like CECS important for esports going forward.
For someone like me and for a lot of people who are really passionate fans of it, we love it for the same reason somebody loves their favorite sports team or they love to play sports, because it's just really cool with this competitive thing we love to do. It's really cool to get it at this level and really delve so deeply into it and, ignite our passion for it.
We talked already about the 100% hit rate for Killjoy, the most played agent.
Future events are in the works, and the people behind CECS believe there is so much more to come for their group.
I'm feeling quite confident in what's to come next. I'm hoping we're going to be able to do another event. I know we have something definitely planned for November, but again, it's just a lot of sitting down, sorting out what we can and cannot do based on our budgeting.
It's a win for both players and fans wanting to expand the reach of their interest and ensure competitive esports stays within reach for all.
Give it up one more time for your champion!
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
So you want me to sing a song? Oh.
Maybe like some of the healing.
Okay, so the bear song would probably be if you want a healing song would be that. But I think you might want to move the mic away from me a little bit.
I'm gonna record it like this.
Yeah, because it's the drum gets really loud. I've never recorded before.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon. This is your 3 p.m. news on 1680 The Crow. I'm Gula Swanova. Premier David Eby says British Columbia's effort to navigate its way through the provincial's drug overdose crisis has resulted in more than 12,000 deaths over the past 7 years, shouldn't involve people using illegal drugs whenever they want. He says his new Democrat government has introduced legislation that restricts illegal drug use in public areas, including parks, recreation fields, and bus stops and doorways. Eby says BC's drug discrimination efforts are about helping people beat addiction.
Our compassion, our understanding that system doesn't work to address addiction issues does not mean that we need to tolerate public drug use in our communities, especially in areas used by kids, playgrounds, parks.
Federal Innovation Minister François-Philippe Champagne has announced his secure commitments from Canada's biggest grocery chains to take measures to stabilize prices. He unveiled some of those first steps after meeting with top CEOs. Ottawa gave until Thanksgiving to come back with plans.
Starting soon, Canadians will be able to see rollout of actions such as discount across a basket of food products, price freezes, and price matching campaigns, to name a few.
Vancouver is one of the leading cities in our country's tech innovation. However, as our reporter Sonia Kuttenbauer reports, that innovation might not be representing everyone.
Only 18% of British Columbia's tech industry is made up of women. That's largely less than the national average of 24%. BC's Minister for Jobs, Economic Development and Innovation, Brenda Bailey, has been a driving force for diversifying the tech industry. Co-founder of Canada's first women-owned video game studio, she says true diversity in the industry means including more than just women.
Yeah, and I would say it's important that it's women and girls, but it's also important that it's people of color, and important that it's people that have a neurodiversity experience, and it's important that it's LGBTQ2S+, and we need diversity in tech, and it matters enormously.
Minister Bailey believes many employers are beginning to see the true value of inclusion, and that a more diverse industry is on the horizon for tech in BC. Sonia Kuttenbauer, 1680 The Crow.
Sonia is live with us today. And Sonia, why are we seeing so few women in tech in BC?
Well, there's no obvious clue as to why we're seeing that, 6% gap between the national average here in BC, but a multitude of reasons like, a lack of tech products and initiatives marketed towards women, and issues surrounding gender discrimination are definitely factors.
Why is having more women in tech so important?
Well, with a more diverse group of people, you tend to cultivate, a wider range of ideas, which could, inevitably lead to greater innovation and better business success. And that kind of goes for every intersection, not just gender. The tech industry needs more overall diversity.
What are some ways to engage more women in tech?
In BC, there are a multitude of different associations, programs, and groups dedicated to increasing the amount of women and girls in tech. Tech Innovation Girls in BC is an example. They're a partnership program with BCIT and UBC. Initiatives like that are really the best way of engagement.
Thank you, Sonia. Black bears sighting are at all-time high in British Columbia. Our reporter Madison Buckingham spoke with the wildfire expert to learn more about why the province is seeing the influx.
Executive Director of the Fur Bears, Leslie Fox, says a big reason that communities are seeing so many black bears is that this year's forest fire season was so detrimental to their natural habitat. Now that they are in BC neighborhoods, Fox says that they are taking bigger risks with human interaction because of the uncontrolled garbage situation.
Animals are primarily driven by a need for food and habitat, and so that's really what they're looking for. And just like us, they want a safe place to live, and they want access to natural food sources.
Fox suggests that municipalities need to supply and better regulate the use of garbage locks to reduce attracting the black bear population. Madison Buckingham, 1680 The Crow.
Many Canadians were excited when Aritzia Canada launched a huge online sale early this morning, featuring the previous season collection. Only that exciting didn't last long for many customers. Our reporter Grace McLeod finds out why shoppers are angry and speaking out on social media.
Aritzia's archive sale was promising shoppers up to 50 to 80% off from their previous collection of clothing. This sale took place on their website, which did not go as planned for a large portion of customers. Carly Bellamy, a marketing student at Capilano University, was amongst those anticipating individuals. She claimed to have logged on at exactly midnight when the sale was launched, and after a minute, the site went blank, claiming there was an issue.
I was looking on their Instagram every 2 seconds to see if they had an update for us. They literally had nothing, and I was looking at the comments on their Instagram, and they weren't responding to those either.
Bellamy eventually gave up, but took a look at the website the next morning. She claimed that the items were still listed on the now working site, only everything good was sold out. Bellamy is amongst a large group of angry shoppers who are annoyed with the lack of communication on Aritzia's part. I'm Grace McLeod, 1680 The Crow.
There is a word that former U.S. President Donald Trump could visit Capitol Hill next week as a House Republicans hear from candidates for the next speaker. Along with Trump, several far-right Republicans have pointed out that the speaker doesn't have to be a House member and have also suggested one of his close allies could do the job. Reporter Stephen Portnoy has more details on this.
Sources caution that nothing has been finalized and plans could change, but the sources also tell ABC News the former president is thinking of sitting in on next Tuesday's candidate forum. If he attends, it would mark Donald Trump's first time inside the U.S. Capitol since his presidency, certainly the first time since the riot led by his supporters on January 6th. Some members of the GOP conference have suggested that Republicans should choose Trump as their next speaker. He says he'd rather be the next president.
U.S. President Joe Biden is defeating his administration's move to use Trump-era funds for building roughly 32 kilometers of walk along its southern border. The Associated reporter Sagar Meghani has more on this.
The Biden administration waived 26 federal laws in South Texas to allow the construction, with funds approved in 2019, before he became president.
They have to use the money for what it was appropriate. I can't stop that.
The president says he asked Congress to redirect the money.
They didn't. They wouldn't.
Asked if he thinks walls work?
No.
Still, waiving federal laws for wall construction is raising questions because the president condemned wall spending while campaigning. Mexico's president calls the Biden move to allow wall construction a setback. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
The deal is sealed. The NHL's Calgary Flames are getting a new $800 million arena. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says her government isn't paying for the arena itself, but is committing a maximum of $330 million for area infrastructure and to cover half of the new community rink that will be attached to the Flames arena. The city of Calgary will put in $537 million, and the group that owns the Flames will pay $40 million now and then $17 million a year over the course of 35-year lease.
Of course, any investment in infrastructure is much more than the dollar figure attached to a project. It's more than a building and it's more than a road. It's an investment in making Alberta the best place to live and work and raise a family. It's the vibrancy of people strolling the Rivers District as they make their way to see a play or watch a concert or enjoy a meal at a venue right in their neighborhood.
The Saskatchewan government has proclaimed October 7th as George Reed Day to honor the late legendary football player. Premier Scott Moe says he will be remembered Reed's generosity. A book of condolences has been set in the main foyer in the legislative building for people to sign.
He was a team player in every sense of the word. It was never about George. It was always about the team and his adopted province of Saskatchewan, and I would say more specifically, the people that resided in his adopted province of Saskatchewan, and we were so fortunate that he adopted us.
If Saudi Arabia could have designed a process for choosing future World Cup hosts, it might look similar to what FIFA has unveiled for the 2030 and 2034 men's soccer tournaments. The Saudi Arabia Soccer Federation has become the favored candidate to host in 2034. It could be the only one given the short notice bid demands. A key decision fell Saudi Arabia's way Wednesday, when FIFA added South Africa to team with Europe and Africa around a sole bid for a World Cup 2030. That meant only Asia or Oceania Federation can bid for 2034, Saudi Arabia, and perhaps only Australia. And this was your 3 p.m. news on 1680 The Crow. I'm Gilles Wanova.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is For the Record on 1680 The Crow. The grieving process is something that everyone will go through at least once in their lives. Paula Jardin took her grief and co-created All Souls, a ceremony for people of all cultures to commemorate their loved ones. So today, she is here to talk to us about All Souls and its significance.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay. How did the All Souls, event, how did it come about?
Well, it came about for both of myself and the artist who my dad died and her grandmother died, and we were both really struck by just how little was available for people who aren't in a strong religious community or have a strong cultural. We've just felt a kind of obligation as artists to bring more to what was on offer for people in grieving and remembering our dead. And we did a research project and visited a number of artists in England who were doing work around death and funerals. And it was really the manager at Mountain View Cemetery who brought it about. We went there to talk about doing some kind of show of artist-made caskets and burial shrouds. And by the end of the conversation, we decided really what the cemetery needed was some kind of sacred event to keep it safe during Halloween, because that's when a lot of teenage shenanigans would take place. And, markers would get tipped over and stuff. And so the project for ourselves was a kind of reclaiming of traditions, cultural traditions, to remember our dead and to come together as a community to honor our ancestors and just acknowledge the fleeting nature of life. So a lot of it for us is a sense of reclaiming traditions that weren't given to us necessarily because all of our families, except our Indigenous friends, are immigrants, and for many of us, our ancestors left those behind in an effort to fit in here, and consequently, we felt kind of abandoned culturally. So we've been reclaiming it just by doing it. Just like I know that my Polish ancestors would light candles in a graveyard at this time of year, so I started that way with Parade of Lost Souls, actually, down on Commercial Drive, because I used to be the artistic director of a company called Public Dreams, and we did Parade of the Lost Souls grounded in a shrine to our ancestors. And so I guess I've been working from the outside in, like, to learn about these traditions just by doing them.
That's a really beautiful story. You kind of mentioned, like, your ancestors in Poland and the Indigenous people around you, and like there's things like Day of the Dead and Hispanic cultures. Is there any other cultures or celebrations that you had in mind when you started this, or that you see when people come?
Well, we certainly didn't have too much in mind when we started. But yes, it's been influenced quite a bit by all the things that people have brought to it. Walter Kwan, who was an officer with BC Arts Council for years, has been volunteering since the beginning with bringing his family traditions, Chinese Hawaiian traditions, and burning joss paper and showing people how his family did it. And all of the kind of casual story exchanges that happen around the shrines when people gather is part of what makes it so wonderful for me, like, because I've learned, for instance, that there's no like pan-cultural Chinese tradition in the same way that our families all celebrate Christmas in a different way. Like, so listening to people say, oh, in our family, we would do it this way. And Walter saying how his family does it. That kind of exchange has been a really wonderful surprise of it all, like the sharing that goes on. We have a number of First Nations friends too who've shown us good ways to acknowledge the dead and to pray, and so we do offer opportunities for people to do personal ceremony, and we have a red dress tree acknowledging the murdered and missing Indigenous girls and women, and it's just different. One of the things that always would happen with Walter is Zelia, the Ukrainian women's choir, would sing at the Chinese shrine, and just mixing it up in that way. Because really, Brooke, death is very multicultural, if I can put it that way, and we do all have really strong traditions and things that have developed over the years too. We struggled with whether to acknowledge different kinds of death, like suicide in particular, because it's a very complicated grief. And but then both of us had friends who died by suicide in 1 year, and realized that people really, really wanted a place to go to acknowledge this kind of feeling. So there's a shrine in particular to death by suicide, and I don't know. And the infant, I know it's a very it's a deeply moving thing to do, and it's also deeply satisfying and nourishing for me, because what I realized after doing this work for a while, that one of my deepest needs is to feel useful in my community, and this is something that we all need. People really crave ceremony, I've noticed. It's grounding for us. It's a way for us to feel more comfortable in the world. If in your family you don't have that kind of tradition, which I didn't, just trying to find my way to connection has informed all of this work, and it feels really good. Like, this is our 19th year. We started in 2005, and so we've learned a lot along the way.
Yeah. Oh, it's so wonderful.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing, and everyone goes through it. It's nice.
Yeah, I know.
That you can go to.
Yeah, we do find that there are people who come every year, and also people who come and go, hi, I never heard of this. But there's also a beautiful infant burial area at Mountain View Cemetery that is one of the most visited shrines during the memorial period.
Aww.
Yeah.
You guys are doing this between like the last bit of October and the beginning of November. Is there the main reason you chose that was because of Halloween and the damages, or is it also something to do with like the culture around that time of period?
Well, there is a real tradition in a lot of cultures, and I realize that they're connected through Catholicism, actually, to celebrate around this time of the year. But it's following traditions, and in my own ancestry, like the Polish, Ukrainian, Eastern European traditions, this is definitely the time of year. And Syria. Oh yeah, one of the ladies who worked at the place we buy candles was saying that she's Serbian, and she said that in her village you could feel the warmth of the cemetery as you walked towards it, because there were so many candles lit in their cemetery. But yes, we chose this time of year because it's a tradition in so many cultures.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard so many stories like that from people around the world. Yes.
Yeah, and one person I was talking to and he said that the one thing that all of the different cultures he talked to had in common was that they thought other people's customs were strange. Just around burial and final disposition. Everybody's got their own quirky traditions.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And one of the things that we've learned, too, is that for us, many Indigenous cultures, going into a cemetery at night is not something that you would do. So we've adjusted to that as well. We've learned so much. And so now we have afternoon programming on the weekends, specifically Indigenous drumming and ceremony on the Saturday. And then this year on the Sunday, the poet laureate is going to read a story that she wrote about a young boy whose grandmother died. And then offering people an opportunity to draw a picture of something that they'd like to offer to the fire to send to their ancestors. So there'll be, I'm looking forward to that sharing. At sundown on the 25th, we'll open the memorial period, and the shrines will light the first candles at the shrines. And the fires, we traditionally do a thing called Swedish log, and it's a vertical log cut in an X through it, and you light it from the inside, so it burns from the inside out. It's quite elegant. And we hope to have one of those every night this year. And if we don't have a Swedish log, we'll have a decorative burning barrel. So something for people to gather around to stay warm if they like, and also for ceremonial burning. I'm very, as an artist, very attracted to fire. I grew up in Edmonton where it's dark for most of the year, if I can just exaggerate. And so fire is an element that I use a lot, and just out of practicality too. So because it's cold in the evenings, just to have something for people to be around. But yeah, first ceremony, one year a friend came who had all the letters her mother had ever received, and she just didn't know what to do with them since her mom had passed. And so she spent the evening slowly burning all of those, and that was great. So by accident, I think we've learned some of the significance of the things that we do. Yeah, it feels really good to be there. It's a very gentle event. It's not morbid or scary. We forget that people have to walk through the dark cemetery to get to the area where we have all the memorials, but don't be afraid. It's very nice.
Yeah, it seems like a very healing environment.
Yes, I hope so, and that's certainly our intention. And we do keep the candles lit all through till the morning of November 2nd. So if somebody comes and leaves a memorial for somebody and they light a candle, we'll go around every day and relight all of the candles so that the memories can stay illuminated, activated. And then, we do a closing ceremony. We just walk around to all of the different shrines as a way to say goodbye and to kind of energetically close the event. And that's something that's kind of evolved on its own, but also from reading about other traditions and understanding that when you open something ritually or ceremonially, you have to close it at the end too. One of the things, what was very instrumental in making this possible was back in 1986, the cemetery was officially full, and a multinational company tried to buy the cemetery from the city of Vancouver, and the religious groups found out about this and said, no way. And to their credit, the city of Vancouver responded by doing a big public process to devise a master plan for the future of the cemetery.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikka-King.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikka-King. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm Nicholas Poitras, and this is your sports news at 3:30. Canucks GM Patrick Allvin has announced some roster moves. Canucks prospects Artur Silovs, Philip Johansson, Max Sasson, Artur Roti, Linus Karlsson, and Archie Baines have been sent down to the AHL. The Canucks will play their final preseason game in Rogers Arena tomorrow at 7. They'll debut against the Oilers on home ice on October 11th. The NHL's Calgary Flames are getting a new $800 million arena. Calgary Mayor Yoti Gontek says the preliminary deal announced in April for a new $1.2 billion events center and entertainment district near the city's downtown is finalized. She says it's an exciting development.
At this critical moment, when we are seeing explosive population growth and increasing private sector investment and interest in our city, the confirmation that the Event Center project is proceeding to design and construction phases will generate strong investor confidence in our culture and entertainment district.
The Alberta government is committing a maximum of $330 million for arena infrastructure and the cover of half of a new community rink that will be attached to the Flames arena. First overall pick and Vancouver native Connor Bedard will be playing his fourth preseason game tonight against the Minnesota Wild. Bedard has played 3 games thus far for the Blackhawks, scoring once and having 4 assists. Bedard is expected to be in the lineups for the team opener on October 10th against the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.